Hello, welcome to This Is My Architecture. I'm Anshul and I'm here today with Badri from Singapore Exchange. Welcome, Badri.
Hey Anshul, nice to meet you here.
Badri, can you tell us a bit about SGX and especially the investor portal, which we are going to talk more about today?
Yeah, sure. So Singapore Exchange is Asia's leading multi-asset exchange operating in equities, derivatives, and the fixed income markets. Yeah. So the investors portal itself a single point of contact for our retail investors to open their trading account, what we call central depository, and to manage their investment portfolios, what they trade with multiple brokers, and to access the company prices and the information itself. Yeah.
Great. So maybe can you walk us through what happens when as an investor I log in or access the portal?
Yeah. So the investors portal itself a single page application presented fully with a combination of AWS Edge services. Yeah. So here the front-end artifacts are persisted in S3 and served through AWS Content Delivery Network, it's CloudFront, along with the combination of Edge services with WAF as our Edge firewall and Lambda Edge as our Edge compute to, and finally to present back the artifact back to the user itself. So you'll notice that as a serverless platform, we take advantage of the Lambda Edge for our compute functionalities to execute this compute, deciding on the front-end routing when it comes to our front-end single-page application itself. Yeah. So when the front-end artifacts are loaded into the user browser, you can decide to log in into the portal, and you can choose your sync pass to log into the portal. Sync pass is basically in one account management to access Singapore government e-services. Yeah. So when the user invokes an session API call, the backend API call, the API itself is served from the AWS API gateway. The user gets redirected back to the sync pass portal, where the user gets authenticated and they redirected back to our backend. And the backend services, what we host in the EC2 instance itself, that creates the user session, it responds back with the session information itself. So for the subsequent API calls, the user then carry their session information along with their HTTP payload. So from the API gateway, we will not directly invoke the underlying microservices, perhaps Lambda authorizer as our step 0. This interacts with the Elastic cache and to decide whether to allow that user API action to execute or not. So that's pretty much about this investors portal application and what goes behind the screen, when you log into the portal itself. Yeah.
Great. Can you also touch base on some of the security considerations that went into this to safeguard investors' data as well as comply with regulatory and compliance requirements?
Yeah, sure. So as an exchange, we take the security considerations very seriously and we are highly regulated as well. And given the nature of data as well, what is involved in the application, we made a conscious decision to encrypt everything, and that includes the data in transit and data at rest. And also the mutual SSL to authenticate the system. That includes authenticating the system when in the AWS services, between AWS services, and from AWS back to our data center as well. Yeah. So for a front-end application itself, for the data at rest, the KMS, our key management service, along with the encryption, the default encryption method what we have in S3 to encrypt everything at the rest. And also, I can emphasize on the Lambda Edge. So the Lambda Edge as our only compute functionalities, we have a lot of other consideration to introduce the security headers. So that is made possible through the Lambda Edge. And WAF for our IP filtering rule and subsequent, the data in transit with the SSL calls itself. And from the API perspective, so we rely on the API gateway client certificate, client search for the mutual TLS authentication. Yeah. So that carries the identity for any subsequent calls back to the microservices and for the API calls back to the data center, the client certificate carries, the HTTP payload carries that client certificate identity to validate the mutual SSL. And other than that, from the data at rest perspective, Elastic cache with the KMS, for the data at rest for our Elastic cache data considerations, and the typical, the data in transit with the SSL calls itself. So that's pretty much about the security considerations what went into the portal.
That's great. Can you also touch base on some of the benefits that you achieve by moving this to cloud?
Yeah. So I can say from the technical benefits itself, the combination of edge services, what we rely on in this platform to do most of our heavy lifting. Yeah. So the benefits include scaling the platform and as well as the security, the high security implementation, what we can do in ease with the combination of AWS edge platform, the edge services itself. So I can also recollect, at the time of the launch, where the average daily usage volume got doubled, but irrespective of that surge, we could scale this platform seamlessly to support that demand, making it a successful launch itself.
That's great. Thank you for sharing this, Badri. As an investor, the next time I log into this portal, I'll definitely be at ease knowing the security nuances that went into this. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Ansel. It's a blessing being here. Yeah.
Hope you all enjoyed watching this at home. Thank you for joining. This is my architecture.